Yes.
What was it like creating a really kind of cantankerous female character? Because I think there's a lot of cantankerous male characters in literature, and people seem a little more comfortable with that.
Exactly, you're absolutely right, they do. I was just talking to a friend of mine about that. That, Updike, Roth, there are, endless characters, male characters out there that are perfectly acceptable to readers. I mean, I love them. And I think there is something about being a woman writer, and I'm not actually interested in being a woman writer, but I'm answering the question because it is, I think, relevant that being a woman writer, there's a whole different kind of standard in some ways for writing about uncomfortable people or people that make one uncomfortable. So it's not something I thought about because I don't think about these things. There was Olive and that was that. But it's been interesting how many people do comment on the fact that she is an unpleasant person when in fact there are so many unpleasant people in literature. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're not as bad as Olive, I don't know. But the truth is, it was great. It was great. It's really, really fun to work with a character that's so bad or misbehaved. Let's put it that way. Because when I was writing Abide with Me and the minister there, he's just trying to be a good person. Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't know until I was about a third of the way through the book. That is a terrible task for a fiction writer to write about a person who wants to be good. I mean, oh my God, there's no dramatic tension. I kind of didn't get that for a long time. I kept thinking, why can't I lift this book up? And then I realized, he just wants to be good. Who cares? So to have, that's probably why, Rabbit, Updike's Rabbit, wonderful. I love Rabbit, not everybody does, but I love him. But I think they're just easy. They're just more writable in some ways. Eugene O'Neill, what did he write? All Wilderness, that one play about a happy family. It was just, all his plays are so great, I think, and then All Wilderness is like, what's this? Doesn't work. So she was quite workable, withable. Yeah.
I think that the scenes where Olive is kind of cantankerous or whatever. They're fantastic, and then what I love about it also though are those really vulnerable moments that we get of Olive. Were those equally interesting for you?
Oh, completely, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, otherwise she wouldn't be interesting. I don't think. Well, first of all, I don't think anybody is just one way. I mean, I don't think the crabbiest person in the world isn't just crabby, and the nicest person in the world isn't just nice. So. And that's why I write, because I think people are so interesting. And so the idea that she can behave poorly and yet be so vulnerable and actually so generous at times, I think, was really interesting to me and made her, and those moments would sort of come by surprise as I wrote them. They, a lot of this, as you probably know, most of you probably understand that these things do happen often with a degree of surprise, but there are those moments, when she's with the anorexic girl, and, that I just, sort of thought, oh, Olive, look at you, but it seems very within her character, and you just realize that she's got so much stuff in there. And just even being nice to Marlene Bonny, who was ready to stab her cousin-in-law, whatever. There were just moments of, real compassion. But I think what was interesting to me about Olive is that, like most of us, she can see more clearly the further away it is from her personal life. She can afford to be compassionate when it doesn't really cost her as much. Which doesn't mean that compassion isn't worth something. But she's blinder the closer you get to her own world. And I think that's human. So, but she's pushed to the edge. I mean, pushed to the nth degree. Her humanness. Yes.
You talked about one story that you were working on for 10 years, and that a couple months being a very short process for you. I was wondering how you have patience or keep faith.
Yeah. Exactly. Because I love it. And have always loved it, and I just need to do it. It's really kind of that simple, you know, it's just a compulsion. And I think there were 2 times in my life that I can remember where I thought, I can't do this anymore, you know, I can't, it's not working, I can't, you know, the rejections are just so endless, and so, you know, I thought about things to be, I actually did, and it never lasted really more than 2 or 3 days, and those were only 2 events that I can remember, because a sentence would always sort of, I can remember being on the subway and thinking, that's it, I'm not, you know, I can't do it, and then by the time I got off the subway, the sentence had arrived. I thought, oh, well, let me just try that. So it's been hard to know how to live life without it. And that's a lucky thing. That's a good thing. That's what I always tell my students. If you can, you know, it's like what I think they tell acting students is, if you can stand to not do it, you won't do it. Why would you? But if you can't stand to not do it, okay, now I'm getting mixed up. I'm mixing my, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So, have you written your whole life? Because I read you went to law school, sort of had
Yeah,
that,
I
and then
know.
that law school was rather traumatic. And so I'm interested. So, were you?
I was writing all through law school. Yeah, I just was at the law school that I went to, and
Secretly, because you're not allowed to be creative there.
no, I don't think they necessarily encourage creativity there, or at least they didn't. But you know, I have to say I was a very low-profile law student, and I do remember sitting in con law class with Panine, that wonderful book by Nabokov. His, you know, and it fit inside the con law textbook. So, you know, I got a lot of reading done in law school, and I got a lot of writing done. You know, I wasn't the greatest law student, but I pulled it together, and so I was doing it. I was still doing it. You know, I was thinking about how to earn a living, and also my father really wanted me to go because he wanted me to be, you know, like a normal person. So it was hard. It was hard to be in law school. I'm glad I went. I'm very glad I went. I think it really did actually help something. It did something, but it took a long time for me to understand that. But it was kind of a screeching moment. But there was an MFA program there in Syracuse. That's where I went to law school. And when I dropped out of Syracuse, and I hung out with the writers in the MFA program, and I've often thought, well, I haven't often thought, I recently thought because I was there, why it was I didn't transfer into the MFA program, and I didn't. And so there was something, again, it's that unconscious thing, there was something that I was getting out of that law school experience, even if it was just deep loneliness, which is always good for writers, you know, you know that. So, yeah, let me go be really lonely in law school, and I'll write a few books, which is what happened. And had friends in the MFA program.
But that was nice that you had the MFA.
I'm not sure, I don't, honestly, I don't know. I'm really not sure that I would have stayed in Syracuse if I hadn't had those friends. Yeah, and you know, I sort of forget, you sort of, yeah.